I really want to know your take on this character and what it was. I mean, you were born in Germany in a very tumultuous time, as a result of, some of humanity doing the worst to each other. And then you get this role that's has, in my opinion, the best speeches in SG-1. A couple of the best speeches are this character.
Well, partly because Robert Cooper's generosity of spirit. I've had experiences before doing sci-fi that was even closer to my background, starting with an episode of The Outer Limits where I time travel back to a concentration camp.
Oh, wow.
In a really extraordinary episode of The Outer Limits that I had shot probably not far from that time when I did SG-1. And also later on in Warehouse 13, the writers used my background, being this child of Holocaust survivors, as part of the storyline for Artie Nielsen, the character in Warehouse 13, which is a kind of science fiction fantasy show. This episode was supposed to be one episode, and I don't know how I was picked. I was grateful. I liked the show. I hadn't seen all 6 seasons of it at that point. I'd seen it intermittently, and I knew friends who had been on it, and I knew we had a really great group of regular actors who were really wonderful actors and good directors. Writing was really top-notch. And it was an interesting character because the original idea was that a documentary filmmaker is, treated with tremendous suspicion as a kind of left-wing liberal who would somehow denigrate the armed services, which I played into a little bit, knowing that ultimately I was going to not be denigrating them. I'd be talking about their heroism, but I didn't know how deeply I would get into it. I also wasn't really aware it was going to be the death of one of the regular characters for good. I wasn't really aware of that until we got into it. But but we did have a lot of discussions about it, and I asked whether or not I could, sometimes you get onto a show and they really, and I have this discussion usually early before I accept. If the dialogue is such, sometimes I feel I might be a bit miscast. And even though I'm grateful for having been cast, especially if I haven't auditioned for it, and this is an offer, I'm wondering whether or not I can make the dialogue fit a little bit better if I wasn't really changing content. And they were very open about that. And I had a lot of ideas about, they were open to improvisation, which I gather was not unusual on the show, which is very fortunate. When you have a showrunner, I think Robert was also the showrunner and also the writer of the episode. Am I right?
Correct.
So when you have a showrunner on a show, and I wasn't used to it yet. It wasn't until I was doing a regular role in Warehouse 13, and Jack Kenny, our showrunner and head writer, was on the set most of the time, that you realize the benefit of that. Because when a showrunner and a head writer is 3,000 miles away from where you're shooting, there's not only the time difference, but the directors are given the edict that they really have to stick to the script, and for good reason, because they could get into all kinds of story problems. But when the showrunner is there, then improvisation is more of a possibility, because they can say, well, why don't you do it? And Andy, who directed the episode, I think certainly wasn't his first turn at the bat on this show. No. And he had done a lot of these, and was an extraordinarily talented, very talented director, and with actors, and knew the show really well. There was a looseness, about the way we approached it. And all the scenes with all the actors I remember were, really fun because of that looseness, and because Robert was so open and Andy was open. The whole shooting style of doing a documentary, they were doing something different. They all appreciated the difference, the kind of shooting, being able to look right at the camera, the whole shooting style, the handheld feeling of it, my little crew, and
right.
and our stuff that was going on. The biggest thing that happened for me was a long discussion where I said, look, I think that you're missing an opportunity. And Robert jumped on it and said, absolutely, what can we do? And we collaborated together on a speech that is one of my favorite moments in all of my career, which is talking about the importance, especially after a Trump era, talking about the importance of news and about true reporting and about how important it is to a democratic society. And I remember that speech, and I remember we worked on it together. He was very open to my contribution. I mean, it's all Robert Cooper, but I did have I felt a significant contribution, which a lot of showrunners' egos won't allow. There wasn't any of that problem, and I felt appreciated, and I felt welcomed by not only Robert and Andy, but the cast, and it was treated as a very high quality thing, and it was very wonderful when. From what I understand happened is that when they did their first cut of the show and it was long, rather than doing a long episode or a special long episode or whatever, then they decided, why don't we add additional scenes and create a two-parter? And that allowed for the depth of the show to come out. And it allowed scenes that normally would have been cut down significantly or excised completely to be in the show. And that's all a combination of Robert Cooper and the network making those, agreeing to do it. And that's why I think it's why it's a fan favorite, is because of that. Also because it was significant to lose a regular cast member in those circumstances. Very significant, wonderful actress, and all of that made it high drama. Plus, I do remember how emotional Don Davis was. I think he was also at one time in the military.
Yes, Don was. He was a captain.
And a show about the military. He was very emotional, incredibly supportive, really a wonderful actor to work with. And I just remember, it was just a really highlight in my life working on episodic television, which can sometimes be a grind. Sometimes you're plugged in and they're trying to get in and out really quick, and the showrunners are 3,000 miles away, and you're not, it's a good role. It might be a fun episode, but this was a special experience.
Thanks for watching this clip from Dial the Gate. You can find the full live stream shows on our YouTube channel or visit dialthegate.com for the complete schedule. See you on the other side.